Hello, I'm Brigantia Blackbird of Blackbird's Brew. Happy Tuesday. I wanted to chat for just a minute. If you follow this channel, you may be aware that a few weeks ago I went into jury duty and then I made a video and I talked about the experience a little bit. But during that process, there was a great effort on the part of the prosecutor to try to box in the potential jurors into the mindset that they could only consider the jury instructions when making their decision, nothing outside of it, including the question of whether or not the law itself was constitutionally compliant. It has been bothering me ever since. I really cannot get this out of my head because the prosecutor was using jury instructions as a false framing device, which is an inherently dishonest thing to do. And what's worse, that the false framing of issues of the day, that is a tactic that is imposed on us on a daily basis from a myriad of quarters, particularly by people who are speaking on behalf of institutions of one sort or another. And it's always with the goal of reinforcing the illusion of the authority of the institution and the need for individuals, not to reason why, but simply to accept and comply. And the reason why I hate this so much is because it imposes the idea on people's minds that, thinking in these terms, having the mindset of a subject is normal. It's the default option. It's respectable, reasonable. It is anti-American to its core. That's what it actually is. It is not okay. It's not respectable. It's not reasonable. And the reason is because we are not subjects. We are citizens. And the more we forget that, the more the foundations of our nation is eroded away. But put this another way. A citizen is a person who stands in judgment over the government and decides, at the voting booth or through jury nullification or whatever means, whether or not to put up with the affectations of the people who have been delegated certain powers in government. Whereas a subject is judged by the government, and the people in power then decide on what terms they allow that subject to exist. The contrast between these mindsets and the resulting behaviors is blindingly obvious, at least it is to me. And I am honestly perplexed about why more people just do not see it in these straightforward terms the way that I do, because it is just so apparent. Now, what I suspect is that the problem is that most human beings, in their heart of hearts, they are conformists and they are followers. And this tendency has been exploited by the worst kind of dictators from time immemorial because they know they can get away with it. As long as you have, a certain percentage of the population who feels it's just not their place to object, even if they don't like what's going on, even if they know it to be immoral, they just think it's not their place to do anything, and let alone take any kind of action to address the situation. As long as they think that, then the dictators amongst us are safe and they can pretty much do as they please. And this is why we have these, false framing, and why we have this institutional supremacy idea that's just kind of pushed forward in our brains all the time. It's because these are people who want to stay in power. Now, what originally made the United States so different from other countries that existed in history is that when our nation was formed, the goal was for individuals and citizens to stop thinking in terms of who will be rulers and who will be ruled, and to start thinking of themselves as capable people, gifted by the divine, of however they understand that, with personal agency and responsibility. The attack on the sovereignty of the people in any form is therefore an attack on the very foundation of our civilization. And I realize this might seem hyperbolic to some people, but believe me when I say that this false framing device, the idea that it's not for you to decide something, it's not for you to sit in judgment, that is an attack on you. It's an attack on our civilization. It's an attack on what America is actually all about. It does matter who's in charge or who is seen to be in charge. And the only way for those of us who understand that we are citizens and not subjects is to reassert our control. And we can do that by doing everything that we can to encourage a culture of personal sovereignty and then to lead by example. Let our actions speak louder than our words. This isn't going to be popular with the institutionalists, the statists, or the collectivists, but that's the whole point. We don't want to be popular with the kind of people who think that they are somehow bestowed with the knowledge, the intelligence, or just the criminal mindset that's required to think that you should rule over other human beings. We shouldn't tolerate their unlawful and their uncivilized pretensions and the usurpation of power, period. Now, this also won't be popular with a crowd that would just prefer that everyone just leave well enough alone, and why can't we all get along? And they claim it, oh, it's not really that big of a deal. We can always do something else if things get too bad, whatever too bad is supposed to mean. And I mean, just that mindset is it's so irritating. Have you never opened up a history book? Have you seen the people and the victims of all of these authoritarians who probably, like you, thought they would do something if things got too bad, and the next thing they knew, the too bad was happening to them personally, and there was nothing they could do about it at that point? Yeah, food for thought. Yeah, it's my opinion that people of that particular mindset shouldn't be dictating the actions of other people because their voices are not the voices of freedom. They are not willing to take on the responsibility of managing their own affairs, let alone being actively involved in what goes on in their own country and in their own society. These are the voices of people who are okay with being ruled, and they will bend the knee to whatever particular political faction happens to be in charge. They will bend the knee to whatever cultural influences happen to be prevailing at any given time. They are not acting in accordance with principle. They aren't even acting in accordance with survival instincts about, oh, well, I'll just keep my head down and everything will be fine. Because if they understood anything about what goes on, they would understand that there's no way you can walk small enough to where you can escape the notice of people who are all about micromanaging the lives of other human beings. So, as far as I'm concerned, that these people who aren't going to stand up for themselves and get upset when others people do stand up for themselves, you don't get a vote because you didn't take the trouble to grow up, be an adult, and assume your duty as an American. So, no, I'm not particularly interested in what you have to say, and I don't think anyone else should be either. But you know what, who we will be popular with if we make this effort and we start exercising our own personal sovereignty as citizens? We will be popular with patriots. We will be popular with people who love freedom, and they love it enough to exercise that freedom in the face of political and cultural opposition. Now, obviously, I can't speak for anyone else, but if I'm going to listen to another human being and take their words to heart, then wouldn't it make more sense to listen to those voices that see me as a human being and that I should be treated accordingly and that, the government is, not something that should be micromanaging my affairs and it definitely shouldn't be telling me what is or is not my business, and who promote that same freedom for other people, saying, no, we are citizens. It's up for us to decide, and we will tell the government what we will permit, not the other way around. Makes sense to me. And I hope if you're watching this, it makes sense to you. So that's my little rant for the week over with. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please come see me at Blackbird's Brew on Discord. There's a link to join in the description box below. In the meantime, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave a comment. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.